Hey my dear friends, Sam Haymart with Test Driven TV. Look at this. Today we are test driving the 2024 Fiat 500e, the all-electric Fiat 500. Why it's called the 500e. So we're going to have a good look at it inside and out. We're going to take it for a drive and then I'm going to tell you what I really think. All right, my friends, let's talk about the car we have before us. Now, styling, what you're looking at, this is a lot to look at, I think. Well, it's very small, but there's a lot going on here. The Fiat 500 to me has always just been darling, right? And if you're just going, wait, what did he just say? Chances are you ought to just move on to another video. Darling, beautiful, cute AF. Those are the words I use when I look at this car. It just warms my heart, a cute little car. So turn the channel if that's really freaking you out. If you're with me, let's keep going. The 500e for 2024, this is the Inspired by Beauty, which is one of the series that they're doing. And this is one of the more expensive ones, $37,500 in price as tested. And it's basically the way it comes. There's not a lot of options or anything else. It's pretty much one way. And I've seen prices on the website for some of the Red and Music series down at $34,000. So this is one of the more expensive versions in this absolutely darling color of rose gold. So what you're looking at is a car that's completely different than the previous 500e generation. 91-inch wheelbase, 143 inches in length. It's a little bit larger than the previous generation Fiat 500. And while it looks very similar, it shares not a piece of sheet metal and nut or a bolt. It's completely new from the ground up, and this one, of course, is all electric. So wheels on this, 17-inch. These are black alloys with some nice machine face details. Headlights at the front, LED. And look at those cute little markers here on the side. Isn't that just gorgeous? A little Italian flag coloring in there. It's just a nice little detail that makes you smile. And coming around to the back, a nice tiny little hatch and some good detailing, a nice 500 emblem La Prima right there on the back 3/4, LED taillights at the back. It's just a tidy little design that really, it's retro, you could say. It really goes all the way back to the first Fiat models back in the 50s. And so design-wise, I'm very happy with it. It's cute AF. And now let's talk about the interior. The interior of the Fiat 500e, particular to this trim grade, has a cream vegan leather seating upholstery and a dark black background. So it's a nice two-tone look. And like Fiat 500s of the past, it's got a bit of a retro feel and kind of a cute and spunky personality to it. Very simple in its design, more contemporary, what I would expect from Stellantis or FCA. It's got the same DNA that a lot of their global cars have these days. Very simple design and layout. It's got a 10.25-inch center screen infotainment system and a little box down below that's got a place for your phone, charger, and then the shift selector is right here along the bottom of the center stack. Center console, very small, very simple. There's a little tiny cup holder down at the bottom that folds out for one single cup. The information on the website says there are 2 cup holders in here. The other one's in the back seat. And when you look at the back seat, you can see that's a pretty cozy place back there. This is a subcompact car, and that back seat isn't necessarily going to be as roomy as something larger with a 4-door format. You'd have to put these seats forward just a little bit for somebody to really be comfortable back there. And I'm not going to try it. You're just going to have to look at the picture and decide how comfortable that is. But as I sit here, these seats are actually quite comfortable. And in spite of the fact that they're vinyl vegan leather, you know, they're not that sticky and sweaty in this heat. And it's very hot right now because I have this powered down. And the reason I have it powered down is because the cooling system for the electrical system is extremely noisy, and you just totally have it in our audio right now if it were on while we were talking. So I'm going to kind of get through this pretty quick because it's over 110 degrees outside as we speak. The steering wheel's got some nice controls on it, thumb controls on the front, and it's got controls on the back for the infotainment system. Instrument cluster is a small digital screen that lights up and has some nice good information on it, and you can customize what's in there as you go along. And the drive mode selector down here on the center console Three drive modes. You've got normal, range, and Sherpa. Sherpa, of course, is, you know, the ultra conservative save the battery mode. And if you put it on range, that's the one that gives you the one pedal drive to start with. And that's what I've been driving on most of this week. But the selector's right there. Volume for the infotainment center. There is a knob down here. That is really the only hard control you're going to find except for what's on the steering wheel. Overall, I find this interior to be pretty pleasing. The quality of the materials is better than the last generation Fiat 500, and it feels just a little bit larger and roomier because it is. It's a well-done interior. It does lack space, obviously. It does lack some storage area. A few things they could have done to make sure there maybe was some extra cup holders and a little bit more storage. This interior gets 4 out of 5 stars. The infotainment system here is the Stellantis corporate 10.25-inch infotainment touchscreen that we see in most of the vehicles coming from Italy, the Fiats, the Alfa Romeos, and the Dodge vehicles that are built in Italy. It's branded as a Uconnect, and it's got a pretty good fully featured set of content. Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, those are wireless. This does not have the high-end audio system though. It's got the basic audio back end. Backup camera is a basic single view, which is fine in a small car like this. The only real complaint I have is that hunting and pecking around and using this touch screen, it doesn't always respond to your touch. And I've found that in some of the other vehicles I've had the same system in. The Alfa Romeos, the Dodge. They all seem to have this bit of a, you have to touch it 2 or 3 times situation to get it to work. And when it's extremely hot, it tends to just shut off and say, I'll see you later. And so it's a system that, while pretty good, it's not quite as competitive as what I've seen in some of the other brands. This system gets 4 out of 5 stars. All right, my friends, finally time to take a drive. So we're going to do most of our driving in the city today, since with its range and with its size and the overall makeup of this car, it's, in my opinion, mostly a city car. Not really a road trip car, an open highways, back roads car, although it can handle pretty well for that. We're going to be spending our time downtown, where this car probably is going to spend most of its life for most people. So powering the Fiat 500 is a single motor front wheel drive. It has 117 horsepower, and the battery is actually quite a bit smaller than most of the electrics that we see out there. It's 42 kilowatt hours, and it sits just below where I'm sitting and under the back seat. It's underneath the passenger compartment. One thing that I've noticed driving this car right away, it's very hot, and it's summer in Phoenix, and so it's been 110 degrees plus pretty much every day I've driven this car. And the cooling system that runs under the hood to not only keep the air conditioning running, but to cool the battery and the actual drive system is loud. I don't know if you can hear that kind of buzzing humming in the background. That is under the hood. That is the cooling system for the electrical system on this car. And it only comes on when it gets super hot, but that's been most of my driving. You really need to have the radio on most of the time so that you don't hear that. Now, range on this car is advertised at 149 miles, which is not the longest, but it's a compact, micro-compact car. It's not meant to have the big range. With the heat, with the air conditioning, full charges that I've done, the most I've seen is about 135. You expect a little bit of a deficit when you have heat and air conditioning because that runs off the battery, so your range is going to be less. That makes sense. Efficiency on this car advertised at around 115, 116 mpge. Not terrible, but not the best. What I will tell you is that the driving experience here is good. 117 horsepower doesn't feel like a lot, but it's plenty for this car. So it's not necessarily fast, but it has enough power to drive around in traffic, and because it's got a pretty high torque number, it's pleasing to drive in that way. But it's certainly not a sports car. Not gutless either. So pulling out in traffic, you're good, all of that. Now this has the one pedal drive in its drive modes. I'm right now set on range drive mode, which triggers that one pedal driving feature. And so when you let off the power pedal, it's like hitting the brakes, sort of like a bumper car, right? So you lift off the power pedal and it'll bring the car to a complete stop, and it'll hold it at a stop until you lean onto the power pedal again. Some people like it, some people don't. takes some getting used to, but I kind of appreciate it. And the good news is, because it's actually using regenerative braking for the most part to do all of that, it makes it a little bit more efficient on using that range. You can set it to normal so it feels a little bit more like a normal car, so that when you go to come to a stop, you actually have to use the brake pedal, and when you let off the brake pedal, it'll start creeping. And so there's a number of ways you can do it. Then there's also Sherpa drive mode, which is ultra conservative and really sort of slows down everything, and it really cuts into the climate control, which is bad news for me since it's currently 108 degrees and it's only like 10 o'clock in the morning. So by the afternoon, it'll be 115, 118. I don't want this thing set on Sherpa. So when it comes to the drivetrain, I'm pretty impressed with the fact that this is minimalistic. I get it. It's not so minimalistic that it's underpowered, but it really isn't competitive with most EVs out there when it comes to range, when it comes to horsepower and all that. Nonetheless, I put powertrain at 3.5 out of 5 stars. When it comes to the ride, drive, and handling experience, this is a micro compact car. And so even though it does have a pretty good curb weight because it's electric, just under 3,000 pounds, it still feels very nimble. It still feels very tight. It feels like a micro compact car, and that's so rare in today's market. I love that. But it is tuned for the heavy battery, so it does have a pretty firm ride, and that is accentuated by these low profile tires and its 17-inch wheels. There does tend to be a little bit of harshness here and there driving around the city. You do feel all these manhole covers, the speed bumps and such. And because of its compact size, it's kind of fun going over those speed humps in the neighborhood that are just there to sort of slow you down. This car fits entirely all at once on a speed hump. In other words, both axles are on the same speed hump at a time. It's not like one and then two. You know, it feels very dainty in that way, but it's very quiet out on the road and highway except for the cooling system. This chassis is not the most high tech in the world. It has a McPherson strut front suspension. It has a twist beam rear axle, not the most tech. And when it comes to brakes, one little disappointment there, I gotta tell you, it's got drum brakes at the back. It's got disc brakes up front, drum brakes in the back. Talk about welcome to the 1900s. Yuck. It's just a cost saving measure, especially with an EV and the extra weight. It would have been nice had they spent up a little bit and given me some good brakes. So yes, there is a little bit of harshness over things like railroad tracks, manhole covers, things like that. But because we are such a tiny little quantity here, it's fun to throw around in the city. It's just got a nice demeanor to it in spite of its weight for its size. It's fun to drive. This chassis gets 4 out of 5 stars. All right, my dear friends, now it's time to talk about dollars and cents. Is it worth the money? Well, one of the things I've already said, and it bears repeating, is the fact that this is a boutique car. And that means that it's not a Toyota Corolla. You're not comparing it on a spreadsheet to other vehicles in its class. And one of the reasons for that is because there really aren't any other vehicles in this class, at least not in our market here. This is kind of a unicorn, dare I say it. The next cars up the line, you can look at the Nissan Leaf, you can look at the Hyundai Kona EV, for example. Those are cars that are a little bit larger, in some cases more expensive, and in some cases pretty close to where we're at right here, and they offer a whole lot more in the way of size, range, versatility, and so on. This is a car that offers cute AF darlingness. It makes you smile, it's got the warm fuzzies, and really none of those other cars do, in my opinion. So that's really what this car is about, is a combination of EV, compact, lovableness. But the good news is it backs it up with quality, it backs it up with fun to drive, and it backs it up with a living with it everyday quotient that's pretty darn good for what it is. Yes, it's small. Yes, it has a small back seat, not a whole lot of storage. But if this is the kind of car that meets your needs for being a city car and you just absolutely love it, you know, you can justify a little bit more money as a premium for that. So when I look at quality, warranty, all those other things here, I put value at 4.5 out of 5 stars. When you put that in with everything we've already talked about, we're at 4 out of 5 stars for the total review score. Not bad at all. So there you go, the Fiat 500e. I just think it's cute. I like it. Yeah, so there you go. If you like what we do, you can see our latest video right there. If you really like what we do, subscribe to our YouTube channel right there. Either way, stay tuned.